So here with more tonight, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is a former CIA-trained intel operative, and Brad Thor is a former member of the Homeland Security Department's Analytic Red Cell Unit, which was tasked with anticipating future terror attacks. And gentlemen, you're listening to the conversation that I'm having with Congressman King and to Benjamin Hall and the ongoing investigation in the UK. Brad, what goes through your mind? What do we need to be doing here?
Well, I got to tell you, I think what Congressman King has suggested is a good start, but it doesn't go far enough. The Islamic extremists are targeting the West, and I think in return, the West should put a strong focus on the Islamic world and demand concessions towards liberty. Reformers in the Muslim world want to bring an enlightenment to their faith, and they can't do it if we're going to play politically correct and not criticize Islam as being the root of this problem. We know 90% plus of the world's Muslims are great, peaceful, tolerant people. But if we don't keep the pressure up to force a reformation, remember, Christianity has had a reformation, Judaism has had a reformation, Islam has not, and it is long overdue.
Tony, you wrote today about NATO, and I spoke about that
Right.
in the beginning of the show tonight. We have been told by NATO, you know, the president said it was obsolete. Then there were discussions because they weren't focused enough on this huge threat that faces the world right now. How is that being manifested? Can we see that in action yet?
Well, we have to go both ways. I agree with Brad. Look, President al-Sisi of Egypt wants to be a reformer. We need to work with him. And now, as you mentioned, we need to reinvent the tools, techniques, and technology and focus in such a way to be effective. Brad was on a red cell. Look, that's part of what NATO should be doing, is using all the military capability that they've developed over the years and have not updated, and focus it on two specific areas: doing the anti-terrorism actions, intelligence sharing, and all those hard things that apparently Europe just can't do right now. Just like Peter King had mentioned, when you're talking to Peter about FBI knowing all of these individuals ahead of time, the same thing can be true of all the terror acts in Europe. Every one of those individuals, Martha, were on the radar, but somehow they didn't have enough to go forward. NATO has intelligence capabilities, counterterrorism capabilities. It was successful in defeating the terrorist groups in the mid-'80s, the terrorist groups funded by the Russians and the Soviets. Yeah. We need to look at how we can bring back successful methodologies updated to the 21st century and go forward, for goodness sake, at the tactical level. At the same time, we're working with those leaders like Brad talked about regarding the reform.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of attack last night is so sadly easy, Brad. You know, we've moved the perimeter slightly out, right? You don't have to get into the venue. We know they want to go after concerts and shopping malls and athletic events. We've seen that in Rumaya in the magazines that you see online. It's not that difficult, sadly. So what we have to do is figure out a way to be triggered by behavior, by prior acts, and you know, do surveillance to the greatest extent that we can, right?
Well, absolutely. Unfortunately, and I've talked about this with you before and with other folks at Fox, is that my biggest fear always was that the West was going to end up like Israel, under a constant state of siege. Well, we're there. So we need to start thinking like the Israelis. And in fact, one mom said she saw the bomber seconds before he went off and said it looked weird. He had this jacket that was puffing in the wrong places and all this kind of stuff. If you see something, say something is not a snitch thing. It's a save your life thing.
Right.
Gentlemen,
and
thank
Martha,
you.
to add to what you were saying, look, Theresa May's comments to the world today appalled me. Go on with your life. You know, everything is just fine. Can you imagine Winston Churchill saying that to the people of London during the Blitz? Look, we are at war. We are at siege. And the idea here is we need to take this seriously. As Brad said, you know, if you see something, for goodness sake, say something. And more importantly, the leaders have to lead us. This was senseless. This was meant to send a huge message. I got the message. I think everybody better get the message and understand we have to act as if we're at war, because we are at war. We have to act to fix the strategy. We've done all these we've been victorious over the 16 years tactically. But Sun Tzu once said, strategy before tactics. I mean, tactics before strategy is the noise before defeat. We have to put the right strategy in place to win, and do it now.
Gentlemen,
Amen.
thank you. Thank you very much. Good to have you both here tonight.